It's a bright, clear morning here at the range. It's starting to get kind of warm actually, but I wanted to record a video breaking down the NRL22 rig that I run for matches, my rifle. And I've already written a build report on this, so I'll link to that in the video description if you want to read more about how I put this gun together and the cost and everything. But it is a very pricey build, and I'll say up front that you don't have to go this route for NRL22, but it is what I'm running, and you can go with a lot less expensive routes or expensive platforms and get started up in sub 1000 to shoot NRL22. Even less than that, you can run a lot less expensive guns and still have fun and participate in NRL22. You can even borrow a gun. So we'll kind of talk about that later as far as NRL22 is concerned. But if you're not even familiar with NRL22, I'll link to the website in the video description so you can learn more about it. And you should also check out, if you go into my range vlogs and see some of the NRL22 matches that I recorded, because I run them here at the West End Gun Club. So I run monthly matches here, and you can watch some of those videos to see what NRL22 kind of entails. So let's get down to sort of what I'm running here. My rifle, at least, is a Voodoo 22 with a 20-inch Bartlein barrel. It's a MTU Contour, 1/16 twist. It's sitting in an MPA BA Comp chassis, and this is all flat dark earth. I have a Trigger Tech Diamond Pro Curve trigger, 30 MOI base, American Rifle Company M10 rings, the Collis K525i with a Skimmer 3 or SKMR 3 reticle in mils. Then kind of sort of a tweak to this, I have the MK Machining Parallax grip ring that I added to the scope, and then I have an Atlas Cal bipod with the Really Right Stuff Arca rail, and on this side, can't remember the name of the company for some reason. I can't remember it, but I'll link to them in the video description. This is basically just this flexible arm that you can add to your pick rail, and it allows you to put a vinyl card with a hook and loop, so you can write your dope in grease pen. So you kind of see here, I got 75 yards, 80 yards, 100 yards with 0.8 mils, 1.0, 1.8 mils marked off. That's kind of what I'm doing here. But that's sort of the parts list. I'm not forgetting anything. I run a spigot mount because I run my magneto speed sometimes on there when I want to, I need to just double check velocities, or if I'm shooting sort of ELR rimfire, I'll run my magneto speed on there while I'm shooting like 300, 400 yards just so I can watch velocities. But anyway, so as far as this rig is set up, I'm really liking it as far as the weight. It's about, I can't remember off the top of my head, it's like 15.4 pounds, like as it's configured here with the bipod and everything in the scope. It's heavy. I'm used to it though. I used to run an 18.5 pound service rifle, AR-15 service rifle when I was shooting high power. It is kind of unwieldy sometimes when you're trying to run around, get through barricades or shooting off props, and sometimes when you're transitioning positions, but you can deal with it. For a younger shooter, obviously, I don't think they want to run this kind of weight. I think it would go something lighter. But for me, it's working out great. As far as how I have it all set up, like the pull, everything's fine. The Collis scope is the one thing that a lot of people are interested in because it's a Night Force ATAC-R, the 7-35 ATAC-R F1. It's just $400 more or $300 more than the Collis K525i. So in theory, that might have been a better option because Night Force sort of has more, it's more well known, right? And 7-35, that's a great scope. I mean, it parallaxes down to 10 meters. You got 35x power for magnification. But what I wanted to do with the Collis K525i and why I bought it is because it has a left side windage knob, which I didn't mention earlier when I mentioned the scope. So the windage is actually on the left side. I have elevation on the top, which is normal. Parallax is at the top, 12 o'clock, which is just unique. And then left side windage, right side illumination, which I never even touch. So the reason why I went with I wanted to try left side windage, I never used it before, is that I wanted the ability to adjust my windage and still have it visible on the left side because I'm a right-handed shooter, as opposed to having to look over to the right side of the scope. So I can stay on the gun, I can see the, I need to move this ring here. I can see the hash marks without coming off the gun. So that's what I like. I can see all my markings. And some people will argue that you don't need to adjust windage once you're shooting a match. I just thought it would be nice to have. And after using it for a while, I don't think it's all that necessary. It is a nice value add, but if you're deciding between a Collis K525i and the Night Force 7-35 ATAC-R, I would probably just lean towards the ATAC-R. There's nothing wrong with the Collis. I think it's a great scope. I do notice some chromatic aberration on a very, very bright, like a shiny, glossy steel target. If you're using like gloss paint, in certain conditions and lighting conditions, the way it bounces off, you will see that chromatic aberration or some kind of purple haze fringing coming off that. And that's the only time I ever noticed it. When it snowed out here one time, a couple months ago, I did notice some chromatic aberration once the sun came up and started glistening off the snow. So that might be a concern. A lot of people said they don't notice that, but I personally notice that. I'm kind of a photographer on the side, and I can tell when I see CA conditions based on lens issues. But then again, I haven't had an ATAC-R like out in these conditions. I don't own one. I've never really got to have a lot of time behind a Nightforce ATAC-R, so I can't tell you if that would have the same kind of issues. And I never compared my vortexes either. I never brought out my razor and shot in that same condition before, so I don't know. I just wanted to mention that. But I do like the Collis scope. So there's nothing really on this gun that I don't like. Should I have gotten a Nightforce? I don't know. But I will say for NRL22, everything I have set up is great. I like how I have, obviously, the full-length rail for ARCA, which you can run in open class NRL22, but not in base class. So there's not really much to say as far as anything changes I would make to this build. But as far as shooting is concerned, I find everything else to be quite comfortable. Everything's ergonomic for me. I can shoot it left-handed as well when I have to. Length of pull is great. The adjustability is great on this gun. I do have the adjustable sort of cheek piece here, and actually I did clean this gun, so I haven't run it up yet actually. So I know that for bottomed out I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 clicks is what I usually use for my setup. I can't remember what the height of these rings are. I have to look that up. But the way I have this set up, I usually run 21 clicks from bottomed out, so I know where I'm at. So it's a nice way to index. I know some of the some of the MPA chassis don't have this wheel, and you kind of have to use set screws to take it out. At which point you need to come up with your own marking system somehow, so that you can reset it whenever you need to clean the rifle. Because when you do clean the rifle, if and when you do, a lot of people say you don't need to clean rimfire, but I tend to clean rimfire every 500 rounds or so. But I have to drop the cheek piece down in order to run my rod through with the Voodoo 22 custom bore guide. So that's sort of something to mention. I should also mention that for NRL22, I do run Lapua Center X. It's my primary ammo that I run in the Voodoo 22. I found that it shoots the best. It was easy to find a lot that shot well. And I've also been trying out long range, SK long range match. It shoots quite a bit hotter, about 15 to 20 feet per second hotter than the Center X in my gun. The groups at 50 yards look really good, but I haven't really tested it at longer range beyond 200 yards like I have with Center X. But it's something I need to try out in the very near future. I run multiple mags. I have 4 mags for my Voodoo 22. They're all the plastic mags. They're actually really robust. No issues with the mags. I've dropped them and they're pretty resilient, but I am waiting for Voodoo to release their billet mags in their anodized aluminum, so I'm waiting for those to come out. Now that I'm bringing up the mag, so there is one little tweak I also had to make on this NRL22 rig, is the fact that I had to run the MPA long action magazine catch, because when I run the gun and I jam it against a barricade and I'll have the mag kind of wedged, sometimes the bolt won't close. The bolt hangs up on the mag, or I'll have a misfeed of some sort. So what I've done, I changed out the mag catch with the long action mag catch, which has been a solution for this. And that solves all my problems, eliminates all the wiggle, and I have no problems with feeding. There is a plastic spacer for the MPA chassis that you can run that also solves this problem. But what I found is that it comes out. I've super glued it. I tried that one and it works great in terms of fixing any sort of mag slop issues. But it falls out after a days of use, because I'll see it'll just fall out onto like my shooting mat or whatever when I'm shooting, when I remove the mag. and I've tried to super glue it, and I didn't want to run a stronger epoxy because I still want the ability to kind of have to, if I want to take it out. But so I said, forget it. Let's try the long action mag catch because I had one of these already sitting in my parts cabinet. So I dropped it in and it works great. As far as the balance point on this gun, it's a little bit slightly over the magwell, or like right on the magwell. If I put my hand here, it'll sort of tip backwards. And I know most people want the gun to balance just for the magwell, but on my rig, it's kind of back heavy. And I know a lot of people complain about this, but for me right now, it's not an issue. I can remediate this by trying to add weights to the front because I have the opportunity to, I mean, I don't think MPA makes weights for this specific chassis, but I think I can kind of manufacture something to fit in these key slots. But I know the MTT chassis is very popular, MTT ACC, I think, because they have a weight system. I've held those and they're pretty nice. And you can add a lot more weights, but for now, I think for my rig, this is working out for me. And I'm having no issues as far as balance is concerned when I'm using this gun. While I've been discussing this, I just totally remember the name of this card. It's called the Blamm Industries sort of dope card holder, BLAMM Industries. And what I really like about having this here is that I can kind of look at my left eye right here. And for NRL22, it's not really too difficult to remember your dope, but sometimes you just don't remember. And if you shoot enough rimfire, you kind of know, hey, 75 is going to be 0.8 for my gun, and like 100 is 1.8. So you kind of remember, but at the same time, we're shooting multiple matches, and if I'm the match director and I'm running a squad as well, I'm kind of doing multiple things at once, so it's nice to know that, hey, I have this on here. I can quickly remember, hey, I need 1 mil for 80 yards. I'm looking at, oh, on this stage I have 1.8. So just kind of remembering without, kind of having that little reminder to on what you're doing for that stage. So it's nice to have. If you don't have one for NRL22, it's not a big deal. It's just kind of remember stuff a little bit better than I do. So it's a nice handy tool to have. Highly recommend it. One more item to note in my NRL22 rig is my bag. So my primary bag that I use is the Armageddon Gear / Razor Precision Game Changer pint sized and wax canvas. It's the heaviest fill. I love this thing. The wax canvas is better than, in my opinion, than the Cordura one. I just like the way it feels, the way it flexes, the way it's kind of the pint size too with the heavy feels so rigid. I use this as both a standard bag, like kind of forward type support, and I can drop it on like the center of a tank trap, kind of shoot like this. Other types of barricades, and I also use it as a rear bag as well, but it's very flexible. The way my NRL22 rig is set up, it's very versatile and adaptable for various situations. As I mentioned earlier, the Game Changer bag can be used as a rear bag as well, kind of like upside down with sort of the ears sticking up and the wedge at the top. I have my Atlas Cal bipod set up with the Relay Art Stuff Arca clamp. I can just slide that on the full length rail of the MPA chassis, the forend. I can just lock that into place, and I can use a bipod support with rear bag support on a small platform like the bottom of this 55-gallon drum. So it's very, very, very handy when I'm trying to shoot off these types of platforms in a given stage of fire in NRL22. Other than the rifle, a quick gear check for the other things I do bring with me with my NRL22 rig. I do have spare mags, as you can see here in an Armageddon Gear kind of magazine pouch type thing. I do have an Armageddon Gear sort of single pouch that I keep on my belt line. This is for my spare mag when I'm shooting a match or shooting a stage of fire. I keep my spare mag on my belt if I need to have any misfires or anything. Then I have just my ammo. I usually only need 150 rounds just in case. I mean, you only need theoretically 50 rounds for NRL22 match if you don't have any ammo issues, but I just bring 150. That's just kind of a baseline. to have for if I need a zero or just emergencies or whatever. My fixed sticks, my torque limiters. I do bring a Vortex Bino with me. It's just the Viper binoculars. Keep these just for spotting. In my duffel here, I do have my Armageddon gear, mini pint-sized game changer bag. Laser rangefinder, this is just my Sig Kilo 2000. My shot timer, which when I need to run stages. And that's sort of it. Oh yeah, and a Kestrel 5700, the Applied Ballistics version. Sorry if I can do this one-handed here. It's in the FHF gear sort of pouch here, but then I have my Kestrel here. And I have a bunch of like safety stuff in here, a bunch of empty trimming indicators, my SAP sling. I've just started using the SAP, or the Short Action Precision sling. It's actually working pretty well. I was just I jerry-rigged my 1907 style national match sling that I use for high power. I was actually using that for NRL22. That worked well enough, but I decided to get an actual like kind of modern sniper, quote-unquote sniper style sling. But this one actually is pretty snug when you cinch it up, so pretty happy with it. But that's kind of it for kind of the loadout for the extra gear or supplementary gear. That basically summarizes my NRL22 rig for those of you who are interested in what other people such as myself are running for NRL22 matches. And I also talked briefly about the gear that I also use. And as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing really I would change about my gun, other than maybe figuring out the balance issue. Again, it's kind of back heavy. It's not a big deal to me, but I know a lot of people would prefer that this would balance on this exact point where I have it on this sawhorse. It is definitely tilting backwards, but I can live with this. I like my scope. Again, should I have gotten the Datacard? I don't know. For ELR, I would probably get the Datacard, definitely. I think there's one thing I probably would change. I ran a 30 MOA base. When I shot this at another range at 400 yards, I ran out of elevation. This has 29 mils built in of adjustment, elevation adjustment. My turret stopped at 20.5 mils, which means I needed I need more cant on the base. Voodoo sells a 40 and a 60. A 60 should get me to 500 plus yards, and I should still be able to hold a 50-yard zero. So in retrospect, I should have gotten a 60 MOA base. I'm probably going to order one of those and replace the base on this gun and remount my scope. At the very least, I highly recommend anyone looking to get an NRL22 or rimfire rig, 30 MOA base minimum, but I would probably go with the 40, because if you get something like a Viper PST Gen 2, which only has about 22 mils of adjustment, you'll still be able to get to 400 without having to hold over your target. So that's my recommendation there. And again, as I mentioned, this is kind of a very pricey rig. When it's all said and done, it was $6,500 plus, and that includes the optic though. And the optic was about 47% of the total cost. But there's lots of other options out there. TQT1X, CZ457, the Ruger Precision Rimfire. Savage has some guns. There's a lot of guns you can use for NRL22 that'll be just fine and work well for the match, and you'll have a good time shooting this match. So if you're in the SoCal area, definitely come out to the West End Gun Club for Sunday of every month. Currently, as I'm recording this, we hold matches the fourth Sunday of every month. If you want to observe, definitely come out and just observe. I mean, we start live fire roughly at 9 after we do check-ins and stuff in zeroing period. So if you just want to observe and don't want to shoot, come in around 9 o'clock, we'll be right into live fire and you can see how it goes. Then if you decide that you want to participate but you don't even have a gun, maybe let me know and then we can figure out, you can borrow a gun. If anything, you can try my CZ455 that I also have. And if there's a member or two around who have a spare rifle, they can let you use their spare rifle. But definitely try to shoot NRL22 if you're remotely interested. Come out. They're very fun matches and they're pretty briskly run. If we run them correctly, they should be running very briskly and take only a few hours to shoot. But that's kind of it again for my NRL22 rig. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment in the video comments, and I'll try to answer any questions you have as best I can. And if you want to reach out to me directly, go ahead and reach out to me through email or whatever, and I can answer any questions you may have about rimfire and NRL22 in general. But again, thanks for watching, and hopefully this was informative for you.